History doesn't always stay buried in the past. Sometimes it returns, wearing a different face, living a different life, yet carrying the same spirit. From ancient pharaohs to forgotten rebels, from enslaved souls to fearless leaders, these echoes across time remind us that the past never truly disappears. Maybe these striking similarities are only coincidence, or maybe history has a way of returning through new voices and new lives. The stories you're about to hear reveal a mind-blowing mystery: 15 black stars who seem to have died centuries before they ever became famous. And somehow, thousands of years later, or sometimes just decades, their spirit appears again under stage lights, on movie screens, and through powerful music, as if the past itself is determined to finish what it started. Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy. The laughter once buried in darkness returns to haunt the modern stage. Eddie Murphy is an icon of American comedy and film, the creator of countless legendary roles, a ruler of the box office, and the man who helped transform how black performers appeared on mainstream screens. But the story behind his name may stretch far deeper than anyone expected. It began in Brooklyn, where modern concrete was about to swallow the remains of an old, decaying building. On November 7, 2018, construction workers tearing apart the basement for a new condominium uncovered something unusual: a sealed tin box buried deep in the damp soil. Its edges were rusted with age, yet the lid remained tightly closed, as if someone long ago had intended this secret to stay hidden for more than a century. Inside lay a late 19th century tintype photograph. The image showed a confident black gentleman standing tall in a perfectly tailored tailcoat. A silk bow tie rested neatly beneath his collar. His mustache was trimmed with precision, and on his face lingered a sharp half-smile, playful, confident, almost mischievous. But it was the eyes that made people pause. Bright, alert, carrying a strangely familiar spark. One glance was enough for most people to say the same thing. That's Eddie Murphy. Not just a loose resemblance. It looked like the exact same person. The long face, the square chin, the thick eyebrows, the piercing gaze. Every detail aligned with unsettling precision. The photograph felt like a mirror across time, reflecting an alternate Eddie Murphy living in the 19th century, dressed in the refined dandy style of a black gentleman navigating a brutally segregated society. The documents inside the box deepen the mystery. According to Fragile Theater records, the man in the photograph had performed vaudeville in Manhattan between 1885 and 1892. On stage, he wielded laughter like a blade, cleverly disguising sharp criticism of Jim Crow laws within humor. Audiences roared with applause, but tension always hung in the air. His jokes struck directly at the fractures in society that most people preferred to ignore. Then, in 1892, after a sold-out performance, the performer vanished. No farewell. No record. No explanation. The stage he once commanded stood empty, and over time his name slipped quietly out of history, leaving behind only that photograph, sealed inside a tin box and buried beneath the earth. There is another strange detail. The gap between 1892, the year he disappeared, and 1961, the year Eddie Murphy was born, is 69 years. In many African ancestral traditions, that number represents a cycle of return. 6 and 9 turning together, closing one chapter while opening another. Even more puzzling, no known bloodline connects the two men. When a collector eventually emailed the photograph to Eddie Murphy, his first reaction was exactly what you'd expect: that unmistakable, booming laugh. But seconds later, the laughter stopped. Eddie stared quietly at the photograph, his eyes lingering on that familiar half-smile, as if he were looking at himself performing on another stage beneath the gaslights of another century. That elegant gentleman of the 1800s used comedy as a weapon against oppression, until the day he vanished. Eddie Murphy arrived in the 20th century, carrying the same spirit onto a new stage, using explosive comedy, fearless satire, and unforgettable characters to bring laughter, truth, and healing to millions. No physical thread links their lives. And yet their faces and their purpose seem to echo across time in a way that is difficult to explain. Barack Obama. Some whisper that the spirit of a pharaoh lives within him, reborn in the storm of modern power. Barack Obama, the former president of the United States, became a symbol of change, a leader who ushered in a new era of American politics through his charisma, his commanding voice, and his undeniable place in history. Then, on March 15, 2010, a small discovery sent a ripple through that story. In the suburbs of Cairo, inside a private archive sealed since the days of British colonial rule, an independent team of archaeologists uncovered a limestone relief. Carved into the ancient stone was the image of Akhenaten. The pharaoh appeared in a solemn, silent pose, but it was the face that stopped everyone cold. Long features, a pointed chin, large, slightly protruding ears, a narrow nose bridge, deep, penetrating eyes. Every line seemed to mirror Barack Obama with an eerie precision. This was not a passing resemblance. It felt as if the same face had simply traveled through thousands of years, wearing the dust of time. More than 3 millennia earlier, beneath the blazing sun of ancient Egypt, Akhenaten stood at the center of a historical storm. The reforming pharaoh dared to break thousands of years of religious tradition, declaring that Egypt would worship only one sun god, Aten. The decision shattered the old order. For that defiance, he became an outcast. Rejected by the empire he ruled, Akhenaten was erased from history as if he had never lived. When he died in 1336 BCE, the powerful priesthood moved swiftly. His name was chiseled from monuments. His statues were smashed. His tomb abandoned in silence. The rulers who followed him tried to wipe him completely from memory. Yet traces of that face survived. And when that ancient face surfaced again, it reminded the world, uncannily, of Barack Obama. Between Akhenaten and Obama lies a gap of 3,297 years. The number ends in 7, a figure that many African spiritual traditions associate with cycles, completion, and the mysterious return of what once was. Still, there is no bloodline linking ancient Egyptian royalty to Obama's family roots in Kenya or Hawaii. Any search for a genetic explanation reaches a dead end. When the photograph of the relief was shown to Obama, witnesses say he stared at it in silence. His eyes studied the pointed chin, then the ears, then the narrow bridge of the nose. Slowly, his finger brushed the carved stone, almost as if he were touching his own reflection. A chill moved through the room. Because the resemblance was simply too uncanny. Akhenaten tried to change the world before it was ready, and the cost was total erasure. 3,000 years later, Obama rose within a very different system of power, yet faced with the same challenge, reshaping old structures and confronting deeply rooted traditions. One man was buried beneath the sands of time. The other stepped onto the global stage to finish a story history once tried to erase. Queen Latifah. Queen Latifah, a spirit of the Harlem Renaissance reborn in the era of female empowerment. She stands as one of the most versatile icons in American pop culture, leaving powerful marks across music, film, and television while opening doors for confident Black women to speak with their own voice and authority. For years, critics have drawn comparisons between Queen Latifah and Zora Neale Hurston, the legendary writer and anthropologist of the Harlem Renaissance. And it's not just a playful idea. The resemblance feels so striking that whenever the possibility of a Hurston biopic is mentioned, Queen Latifah is almost always the first and only name suggested for the role. On April 12, 2022, while cataloging materials at the American Anthropological Association archives in Florida, staff uncovered an unpublished daguerreotype dated June 12, 1947. The photograph shows Zora Neale Hurston seated on the porch of her home in Eatonville. A wide-brimmed hat shades her face, her back straight, her expression glowing in the warm afternoon sun. When the image surfaced, it sent a quiet shock through those who saw it. The dimples, the rounded chin, the calm, steady eyes, the broad, radiant smile, features that mirror Queen Latifah with almost uncanny precision. It wasn't just a few shared traits. It felt like looking at the same woman across 2 different timelines. Other portraits of Zora from the 1940s reveal a vibrant, full-faced woman with bright eyes and an open, confident smile, warm, yet unafraid to challenge anyone before her. That same presence seems to live on in Queen Latifah's face, as if those qualities traveled forward through time. Zora Neale Hurston died on January 28, 1960, in poverty and largely forgotten. The woman who once helped shape the cultural voice of Black America left the world quietly, her brilliance barely recognized at the time. Exactly 10 years later, Queen Latifah was born. From the height of Zora's influence around 1937 to Latifah's arrival is 33 years, a number often linked in Black spiritual traditions to cycles of completion and return. No blood connection has ever been discovered between the two women. Genealogical searches lead nowhere. What remains are the startling similarities in their faces and the echoes in their life paths. Zora used folklore and literature to preserve the soul of her community during the suffocating years of Jim Crow. Decades later, Queen Latifah carried that same spirit forward through feminist rap, film, and television. One told the stories through books, the other through music and the screen. And between those two lives, separated by half a century, it almost feels as if an unseen current continues to flow forward. Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne, a man whose presence feels like history stepping back into the room. A towering force in Hollywood, he has left an unforgettable mark through powerful roles, a warm, resonant voice, and a commanding presence that no one mistakes. On August 22, 2019, while renovating a small museum in Ohio, staff uncovered a dusty archival box. Inside was a tintype photograph of a man named Jordan Anderson, along with a remarkable letter. In the mid-19th century, Anderson, a newly freed slave, wrote his now famous 1865 letter to his former master. With razor-sharp wit and icy sarcasm, he demanded back pay for 32 years of stolen labor. The letter spread across the nation, becoming a symbol of dignity, awakening, and quiet defiance. The photograph was taken on July 10, 1866, just a year after the letter stunned the public. The face captured in it is clearer than any previous record. Jordan Anderson's portrait leaves a powerful impression. A stern expression, square jaw, heavy brows, straight nose, and deep eyes fixed with an unyielding gaze. Place that image beside Lawrence Fishburne's, and the resemblance is striking. When Fishburne first saw the photograph and read the full letter, a heavy silence followed. He later described the moment as if the man in the picture were searching for a voice, a new voice, to finish a story history had left unfinished. Jordan Anderson died on April 15, 1905, in Dayton, Ohio. His passing drew little attention beyond his family, like so many lives history quietly forgot. 56 years later, Lawrence Fishburne was born. In certain African American spiritual traditions, the number 56 reduces to 11, a number often associated with purpose, destiny, and unfinished missions returning to be fulfilled. There is no known blood relation between the two men. Genealogical records show no connection. Yet the link between them seems to run deeper than ancestry. Over the years, Lawrence Fishburne has been invited several times to read Jordan Anderson's historic letter for documentaries and educational projects. Through his deep, steady voice, the spirit of a freed slave seems to rise again. Each word carries dignity, composure, and moral weight. History tried to erase many voices. Jordan Anderson answered with words sharp enough to demand justice for a lifetime of exploitation. More than half a century later, Lawrence Fishburne emerged with a voice and presence that echo that same demand for dignity. Across the divide between the 19th and 20th centuries, it almost feels as if an unseen current carried that spirit forward, returning in a new form to continue the story. Will Smith. From a man once bound in chains to a symbol of unstoppable freedom. Today, Will Smith stands as one of America's most celebrated film stars, known for his powerful presence, explosive energy, and the rare ability to convey emotions so deeply that audiences around the world are left breathless. But before we explore the man whose face seems uncannily familiar to history, let me tell you a story. In 1863, a photograph known as The Scourged Back shocked the nation. It captured the brutal, whip-scarred back of Gordon, an enslaved man who had escaped from a Louisiana plantation. The deep lashes carved across his skin turned his body into living evidence of slavery's cruelty. When the image spread across America, It became one of the most powerful pieces of abolitionist propaganda of the 19th century, forcing a nation to confront the horror it had tried to ignore. But Gordon's story didn't end with escape. After gaining his freedom, he joined the Union Army during the Civil War. Once a man in chains, he became a soldier carrying a rifle, his scarred back standing like a silent flag of accusation against the system that had nearly destroyed him. Yet after 1865, Gordon disappeared from historical records. His name faded into the chaos of war, lost to time more than a century ago. Then, on June 5, 2021, something extraordinary happened. While archivists at the Library of Congress were relocating Civil War materials, they discovered an unpublished daguerreotype negative. Dated April 2, 1863, the image showed Gordon's face in profile, clear and unmistakable. Deep eyes, high cheekbones, a broad nose, a strong, defined jaw. The moment historians placed the photograph beside modern images of Will Smith, the resemblance was startling. Line for line, feature for feature, it felt almost uncanny, as if time had only changed the era, not the face itself. This striking similarity is one reason filmmakers chose Will Smith to portray Gordon in the 2022 film Emancipation. During production, Smith spent hours in makeup recreating the haunting image of the whipped back. He studied Gordon's life with intense dedication, determined to honor the truth behind the scars and bring the story to life with authenticity and respect. Of course, Will Smith eventually saw the newly discovered negative of Gordon's face. And when he did, he later described feeling something heavy and almost spiritual, like those deep eyes from the past were searching for a new voice, a new body, to finish a story that history had left unfinished. There is another strange detail. The gap between 1865, the year Gordon vanished from records, and 1968, the year Will Smith was born, is exactly 103 years. In certain African spiritual traditions, the number 3 symbolizes the closing of one life cycle and the beginning of another mission. Gordon used his body as undeniable proof of slavery's brutality. More than a century later, Will Smith brought that same story back to life on screen, carrying Gordon's memory to millions across the world. Jay-Z, the Harlem boss stepping back out of the shadows. Jay-Z stands as the modern icon of hip-hop power, a man who rose from the streets to build a music and business empire, becoming one of the most influential figures in American pop culture. On May 9, 2013, while archivists were digitizing old street photographs at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture inside the New York Public Library, a single image caught their attention. The photo dated back to 1939, deep in Harlem's Great Depression era. It had been taken by photographer Sid Grossman and carried the title Harlem Loiter. In the frame, a black man leans casually against a wall. A newsboy cap tilts over his head. His posture looks relaxed, almost effortless, but his eyes cut sharp, alert, calculating. He was an unknown man, yet the moment many people saw his face, the same name came to mind, Jay-Z. The resemblance felt uncanny. Thick lips, a straight nose, the confident, slightly defiant stare. The man stands as if the entire block belongs to him. When the photograph resurfaced, dated July 18, 1939, social media erupted with speculation. The comparison spread quickly, and eventually the image reached Jay-Z himself. According to people around him, he studied the old photo for a long moment, staring at the face from 1939 as if looking at another version of himself across time. Scattered historical notes suggest the man in the photo was around 25 to 30 years old. Locals described him as a quiet Harlem boss, someone who controlled speakeasies and helped shield the neighborhood from abusive police and ruthless loan sharks. In an era defined by poverty and tension, he became an unofficial pillar of the community, feared, respected, and impossible to ignore. Then, by 1942, he disappeared. Some rumors claimed he was killed settling debts. Others whispered he had been arrested and quietly vanished inside the prison system. Harlem kept moving forward, and his story slowly dissolved into the fog of history. From that disappearance to Jay-Z's birth lies a span of 27 years. In many Black spiritual traditions, the number 27 reduces to 9, a number symbolizing the closing of one life cycle and the return of unfinished purpose. Back in 1939, the Harlem Man relied on street intelligence and quiet authority to control chaos and protect his community during desperate times. Decades later, Jay-Z emerged from Brooklyn, rising through sharp lyricism and relentless business instinct to build a global empire. Between those two lives, separated by decades and with no blood connection, it almost feels as if the same underground current of leadership, raw, strategic, unshakable, flows through them both. Keith David. Keith David, a colonial leader reborn on screen. With one of the deepest, most commanding voices in American film, Keith David has built a career across movies, television, and voice acting, becoming a symbol of authority and quiet spiritual gravity. Yet the story of the man who looked uncannily like him did not begin in Hollywood. It began in a dusty archive room in Paris. On March 3, 2019, an African history photo collector reviewing French colonial files uncovered an unpublished salt print photograph taken on September 14, 1917, in Ubengusheri, now the Central African Republic. In the image stood a tall man, straight as a pillar in the center of a village. High, solid cheekbones. A square, powerful jaw. Deep-set eyes holding a calm so intense it almost felt defiant in the face of foreign rule. A brief note beneath the photograph described him as a village chief who resisted French colonial forced labor. After 1920, he was arrested and disappeared from official records. Perhaps he died in prison. Perhaps he was executed. No one truly knows. The story ends in silence. When the photo was digitized and shared online, the resemblance stunned viewers. The man's face aligned with Keith David's almost perfectly, the same sculpted cheekbones, the same heavy, contemplative eyes, the same distinctive jaw that seemed to carry an effortless sense of dignity. But the similarity went beyond physical features. There was something harder to measure, an aura. Cultural anthropologists offered cautious explanations. Equatorial Africa had endured centuries of migration, slavery, and colonial disruption. Perhaps some distant ancestral thread had quietly carried familiar features across generations. But there was no documented bloodline, no traceable genealogy, only a face and an eerie sense of recognition. The time gap between the chief's estimated death and Keith David's birth is 36 years. Some people break that number into 3 and 6, symbols of completion and renewal, an ending that opens the door to another beginning. For many, it is just coincidence. For those who believe the soul sometimes leaves visible echoes, it feels almost like rebirth. When Keith David eventually saw the photograph online, he admitted the man's gaze felt strangely personal, as if it were waiting, even urging him to carry something forward. And when he learned that the Ubengusheri chief had once used his presence to protect his community during the brutal era of forced labor, the connection felt even deeper. Today, Keith David uses his own powerful presence and that unmistakable voice to tell stories that carry strength, dignity, and pride within the Black experience. Two lives separated by time. Two destinies never meant to meet. Yet somehow, the same quiet aura of protection seems to endure. The desert chief who vanished returns as a voice that now echoes across the world. Usher is a global R&B icon who has shaped pop music for decades with emotional vocals, mesmerizing dance, and achievements in both art and business that have stunned generations. On February 12, 2019, in a quiet Rome room glowing under yellow lamplight, an Afrofuturist artist flipped through forgotten Italian colonial photographs. Among hundreds of anonymous images, one unpublished frame stopped him cold. It was taken May 22, 1920, in Eritrea. A tall black man stood firm in the photograph, bright, sharp, deep eyes, a high straight nose, a wide mouth holding a calm, confident smile. His posture was powerful and regal, radiating the presence of a natural leader. The man looked uncannily like Usher. Nearly every facial line matched, from the magnetic gaze to the composed, controlled energy. Scattered historical notes suggested he was an Eritrean chief who led his people in resistance against the Italian invasion. In the early 1920s, he rallied villagers, preserved order, and defended land and autonomy while colonial forces closed in. After 1925, when Eritrea fell fully under control, his name disappeared from the records. The gap between his presumed disappearance in 1925 and Usher's birth is exactly 53 years. In many spiritual traditions, a number ending in 3 signals the completion of a cycle and the beginning of a return. When the photo surfaced online and Usher was tagged, he reacted with surprise and curiosity. He even checked his genealogy. No bloodline connected the two. Yet beyond the resemblance, their purposes feel strangely aligned. The chief of 1920 used presence and authority to hold his community together during colonial violence. A century later, Usher uses voice, rhythm, and image to uplift millions of black spirits around the world. Different paths, yet the same unmistakable aura of leadership. Fetty Wap. Fetty Wap. A name that feels like it echoes across time itself. A rapper known for his unmistakable style, hypnotic melodies, and the relentless spirit of a man who rose from the streets to the global music stage. But in August 10, 2015, Face2Face Africa released a comparison that sent shockwaves across the internet. Deep inside the archives of Brussels, Belgium, a haunting black and white photograph resurfaced. It had been taken on November 3, 1930, in colonial Congo. The man in the image carried an angular face, a sharp and piercing right eye, cold and focused. His left eye was gone, his lips pressed tight, his cheeks and forehead carved with deep scars from battle and survival. And the resemblance to Fetty Wap was almost impossible to ignore. Not just similar, uncannily identical, as if history had simply changed the decade. The face shape, the jawline, the fierce, incomplete eyes staring forward with defiance. Every detail aligned in a way that felt chilling. The man in the photograph was recorded as a native warrior who fought against Belgium's brutal rubber exploitation in the Congo. During violent clashes, he lost his left eye but refused to surrender. Even wounded, he continued leading resistance fighters from the front lines. Then, sometime after 1935, his name simply vanished from official records. Some accounts claim he died of illness deep within the jungle while colonial forces intensified their hunts for rebel leaders. By 1935, the trail of that unbreakable warrior faded into silence. From that moment to the birth of Fetty Wap is a span of 56 years. In numerology, 56 often reduces to the master number 11, a symbol of unfinished missions and the idea of returning to complete what once began. There is no known blood connection between these two men separated by continents and decades. Yet when Fetty Wap first saw the comparison images, he reportedly felt something strange, almost like recognizing a face that lived somewhere beyond memory. The warrior of the Congo carried a spirit that refused to break, even when his body was incomplete. Fetty Wap emerged from Paterson, New Jersey, carrying the loss of an eye as well, yet refusing to surrender to fate. His music tells stories of survival, of rising after every setback, of pushing forward through unforgiving environments. 2 lives, 2 different centuries, but one rhythm of resilience. As if the spirit of that forgotten warrior found its way back into the world, reborn in a new voice, a new body, and a new stage. Danny Glover. Danny Glover, the chained man from Banziri, seems to return in the mid-20th century. For decades, Danny Glover has been one of the rare faces dominating the Hollywood screen while steadfastly leading global human rights causes, carrying both powerful roles and tireless social work across generations. On August 19, 1916, in the Banziri region of Central Africa, a hurried colonial photograph was taken beneath a brutal sun. A tall black man stands before the lens. His hands are chained. His body is gaunt from endless rubber labor. High cheekbones. A sharp jawline. Eyes deep, steady, unbroken. There is no begging in them. No bowing. Only a faint scar across his forehead, etched by years of forced work and silent endurance. His face looks strikingly similar to Danny Glover's, as if cast from the same mold. More than a century later, on March 4, 2020, the Africa to Belgium Archival Project in Brussels began digitizing colonial photographs. Among them, the 1916 Banziri image resurfaced. Within hours it spread across the internet, igniting waves of comparison. The eyes, the bone structure, the hardened yet enduring expression. Many people saw the unmistakable resemblance to Danny Glover. The man from Banziri was a laborer forced into rubber harvesting under Belgian colonial rule. Beginning in 1915, he quietly joined small but persistent acts of resistance. The punishments were brutal, yet they failed to break his will. After 1916, he was reportedly executed deep within the jungle, far from witnesses, far from record. 30 years after that disappearance, Danny Glover was born. 30 years is not long in the scale of history, yet long enough, some might say, for a spirit burdened by the past to find a new form. When Danny Glover first saw the photograph, he spoke about feeling something in the man's eyes, as if they carried the weight of chains, of exploitation, of years that refused to be forgotten. The longer he studied the image, the more haunting the resemblance became. From his tough detective roles in Lethal Weapon to his decades-long fight for justice and human rights, Danny Glover seems to echo the strength of the Banziri man. The chains are no longer on his hands. But through his fame, his voice, and his global presence, the spirit of resistance continues to stand tall. Aldous Hodge. Aldous Hodge. A Cameroonian king reborn on the throne of the screen. Aldous Hodge is a familiar face in American film, known for powerful, deep roles and a quiet aura of leadership that leaves a lasting imprint on both television and the big screen. On October 8, 2018, while Berlin's Ethnological Museum was scanning old German colonial photo archives, a photograph from 1920 appeared unexpectedly. It had been taken on March 12, 1920, in the Bamum region of Cameroon. A silver print from a tense post-World War I era. In the image stood a young king. A long, rugged face. High cheekbones. Deep, piercing eyes, cold yet focused. A straight, noble nose. The unmistakable presence of someone born to lead. And with just one glance, the resemblance was startling. The face looked almost identical to Aldous Hodge. Those same commanding eyes. The same strong jawline. A calm strength layered with quiet intensity. In the early 1920s, this young king reportedly led the BAM community as French colonial pressure tightened around them. Harsh policies, forced taxation, and calculated attempts to erase native culture met determined resistance. Against overwhelming odds, he worked to unite tribes, protecting their language, rituals, and ancestral land. Then, after 1926, his story vanished. Colonial records suddenly went silent. A few faint documents suggest he was exiled, and later died quietly in prison. 60 years after the king disappeared, Aldous Hodge was born. In many African spiritual traditions, the number 60 symbolizes completion, cycles closing and beginning again. There is no known bloodline connection. Yet the striking similarity in face, presence, and spirit turns the story into something that feels far bigger than coincidence. When Aldous Hodge first saw the photograph, it felt almost like an invisible crown had been passed forward through time. And now, through stories on screen, stories of freedom, leadership, and resistance, Aldous continues telling the kind of stories that King may never have had the chance to finish. The material throne may have fallen long ago, but the spiritual throne still stands, reborn in a new age. Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes. Some believe a soul can cross centuries. Some believe certain spirits never disappear. They simply return in a different form. One story that fuels this mystery begins in 19th century Madagascar. Wesley Snipes is a familiar face in American cinema, an action icon known for his calm intensity, sharp gaze, and unforgettable presence in dark, supernatural roles. His work has left a deep imprint on pop culture and black entertainment. On November 25, 2019, inside a quiet archival room in Paris, an Afrofuturist artist was examining photographs from a French colonial collection prepared for an exhibition. While scanning through the files, he paused at one particular image dated June 7, 1896, Madagascar. The photograph showed a local woman believed to be a village shaman. She had a wide jawline, high cheekbones, thick brows, fierce bright eyes, and a wide mouth carrying a calm yet unpredictable smile. What shocked the artist was the resemblance. The woman looked strikingly like Wesley Snipes, far beyond what most would call coincidence. The facial structure, the intensity in the eyes, even the powerful aura seemed almost identical. Yet historical records revealed no distant relatives, no genetic connection, and no bloodline linking them across half the globe and more than a century of time. According to colonial records, the woman was known locally as a spiritual protector. She practiced ancient rituals meant to shield her village from the growing pressure of French colonial influence. As native beliefs were suppressed and labeled superstition, many spiritual leaders were silenced. After 1902, the woman disappeared. No record of her death. No trace of her fate. Only the black and white photograph remained, buried in archives for decades, a quiet relic of a resistance that had faded into history. When the image eventually surfaced on Instagram, Wesley Snipes himself saw it. What caught his attention immediately wasn't just the resemblance, it was the energy in the woman's eyes. A fire. A presence that felt strangely familiar. There is an eerie detail in the timeline. The woman vanished in 1902. Wesley Snipes was born in 1962. Exactly 60 years apart. In many spiritual traditions, the number 60 represents the closing of one cycle and the restoration of balance after disruption. The Malagasy woman was said to use spiritual power to heal, protect her community, and confront darkness through ritual and faith. More than a century later, Wesley Snipes stepped onto movie screens as Blade, a supernatural hunter moving through shadows with the same fierce, cold, unyielding aura. Two people, two eras, two different forms of battle. Yet the same current of resistance seems to flow between them. Some say it's coincidence. Others believe the spirit never vanished at all. Perhaps it simply changed its stage, from an ancestral altar in Madagascar to the bright lights of 21st century cinema. Meta Sandiford artist. Meta Sandiford artist returns to the basketball court. Meta World Peace stands as one of modern basketball's most unforgettable icons, known for his fierce style of play and a never-retreat fighting spirit. His life tells a powerful journey, from moments of on-court chaos to becoming a voice for community growth and mental health awareness. On July 14, 2016, Face2Face Africa published a series of shocking comparison images. One photograph came from Belgian colonial archives, taken on April 28, 1911, in the Congo region. The frame captures a young tribal prince, square jaw, broad nose, strong sideburns, and calm, direct eyes fixed on the camera. The resemblance to Meta World Peace stunned viewers around the world. No blood connection, no shared lineage, yet the two faces appeared almost like twins. It wasn't only the facial structure. The same regal posture, the same warrior gaze, the same sense of someone ready to defend his land. It echoed the presence Meta carried on the court, solid, immovable, like a steel wall protecting home territory. The Congolese tribal prince once led his people as they resisted the brutal rubber exploitation imposed by Belgian colonizers. In the early 20th century, waves of violent extraction swept through the jungles, tearing through villages and lives. The young prince chose to rise, drawing on both physical strength and spiritual resolve to defend his land and his people's dignity. By 1919, colonial forces executed him. 60 years later, in 1979, Meta World Peace was born. 60 years, almost like the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. A new life, a new body, but perhaps the same burning energy of resistance. Meta grew up carrying that fire onto the basketball court, intense collisions, raw emotion, moments of lost control that sometimes brought heavy penalties. Watching him play often felt like witnessing the spirit of a jungle warrior still learning how to live in a modern world. When Meta eventually saw the photograph of the Congolese prince, he said he felt a deep, almost unexplainable connection. One man used his strength to defend his homeland. The other used relentless intensity to defend his home court. And over time, Meta transformed that warrior energy, learning from the past, choosing healing over anger, and dedicating his voice to mental health, community support, and the power of personal growth. Like a spirit stepping out of history's satirical shadows. Mike Epps is one of Hollywood's standout comedians, known for a sly charm and a razor-sharp wit. His humor does more than entertain. It slips beneath the surface, touching the hidden corners of Black life in America, turning the comedy stage into a mirror reflecting pain, resilience, and truth long kept quiet. On June 20, 2020, the Face2Face Africa page quietly posted a comparison photo. Within hours it spread like lightning across the internet. The image came from the Brussels archives, a photograph taken on January 15, 1955, in Leopoldville. In the frame stood Patrice Lumumba, the future Prime Minister of Congo. Round face, bright, thoughtful eyes, thick eyebrows, a half-smile that carried intelligence with a hint of irony. Placed beside a photo of Mike Epps, the resemblance was striking. No blood relation. Yet it felt as if two different eras were somehow overlapping. The same gaze, balance between humor and gravity. The same face that seemed to hide deeper thoughts behind a calm expression. In the 1955 photograph, Lumumba's face almost looks as if it can sense the storm ahead. In the present, Mike Epps often hides reflection behind laughter. By 1955, Lumumba had already risen within Congo's independence movement. His speeches were powerful. His arguments were sharp. His words cut through colonial rule like blades. 6 years later, on January 17, 1961, Patrice Lumumba was assassinated. His death closed a chapter, but left a dream unfinished. Between that 1955 photograph and the birth of Mike Epps lies a gap of 15 years. 15 years. Not long in the timeline of history, but enough to make some people wonder about echoes between generations. Mike Epps grew up in a completely different world. There were no colonial battlefields around him, yet the challenges were still real. For him, laughter became the weapon. The stage became the place where uncomfortable truths could finally be spoken. His comedy often touches on injustice, poverty, prejudice, and the exhaustion that many Black families carry across generations. Lumumba used powerful words to awaken a nation fighting for freedom. Mike Epps uses laughter to awaken a community still wrestling with inequality. One spoke in public squares. The other performs on comedy stages. Different voices, different times. Yet both carry the same current beneath it all. A restless energy pushing toward dignity, truth, and a better future for their people. Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys revived the spirit of free-flowing melodies. A global music icon, her expressive voice, masterful piano playing, and songs that speak of freedom, feminism, and human dignity have left a deep imprint on modern culture. On May 18, 2018, Face2Face Africa shared a historical comparison photo discovered by African-American researcher Jesse Jumanji. Hidden in Brazilian archives was a rare image taken on July 14, 1869. The faded frame reveals an African woman standing quietly, recorded as a servant within Brazil's slave system, an era when human beings were treated as property until its abolition in 1888. Her face is unforgettable, shaped in a graceful oval. Her deep eyes carry sorrow, yet still glow with an inner light. Her brows arch softly. Her delicate nose suggests quiet endurance and an unbreakable strength. Strangely, the woman bears an astonishing resemblance to Alicia Keys in nearly every detail. Records suggest she was about 25 to 30 years old when the photograph was taken. Captured from Africa and forced into Brazil's brutal slave system, she labored endlessly serving white households, days filled with exhaustion and silence. In 1876, she died from illness and fatigue after being swept into a small Bagia rebellion. Between her death in 1876 and Alicia Keys' birth lies a gap of 105 years. Numerologically, 105 reduces to 6, a number often associated with spiritual completion in many Black spiritual traditions. With no known bloodline connecting them, the mysterious similarity in their presence and energy becomes even harder to explain. When Alicia Keys was tagged in Jesse Jumanji's post, she reportedly stared at the image in silence for a long moment, sensing a connection that seemed to stretch across 2 centuries. The Bagia woman struggled to preserve her dignity even in chains, even without a voice. More than 100 years later, Alicia Keys would use music, piano, and her powerful voice to speak for those once silenced, turning the pain of a people in bondage into melodies of freedom heard across the world. These people disappeared into slavery, war, and the shadows of forgotten centuries. Yet somehow, they seem to return in new forms, standing again in the light of global fame and influence. If coincidences like this send chills down your spine, leave a comment below and tell us which face lingers in your mind the most. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to uncover more mysterious stories where the past and present of famous lives meet in the most unexpected ways.